Welcome to Lesson 1.1, Examining Information Security Fundamentals. In your Candidate Information Bulletin, we're in the Security and Risk Management domain, and we are in A, Key Area of Knowledge A, which is Understand and Apply Concepts of Confidentiality, Integrity, and Availability. Our Lesson 1.1 topics are going to include the CIA Triad and supporting principles. Cyber attacks are escalating at an unprecedented pace with frightening veracity. Successful attacks not only result in major service disruptions and theft of data, but also appropriation of infrastructure to perpetuate attacks on others, transforming our systems effectively into weapons. Cyber attacks have the potential to impact our national security, our economic prosperity, our economic growth, and consumer confidence. Every organization, regardless of size or geographic location, has the potential to be a target. From the boardroom to the White House, cybersecurity is a topic of discussion. It's now more important than ever that certified security information systems professionals are in the field advising, managing, and implementing cybersecurity programs. Throughout this course, we're going to be using the terms cybersecurity and information security, and I want to explain the distinction. Historically, information security programs have been very focused on building strong internal programs, but those programs have been developed myopically, looking very much inward. When we start talking about cybersecurity, we're recognizing that all of our organizations are part of a greater digital ecosystem. What one organization does impacts all the others. So in a cybersecurity environment, we need to start not just looking at internal programs, but also our external partners. We need to think not just locally, but we need to think globally. And we need to make sure that we're interacting with other organizations, sharing threat information, and working together to build a strong environment against those who seek to harm us. Our job as information security professionals is to create and manage and support cyber-resilient environments that can withstand attack and allow our organizations, our community, and our country to prosper. As a CISSP candidate, you must understand the fundamental concepts of information security and cybersecurity, but most importantly, it's how you're going to apply your knowledge. So let's start talking about information security. And I want to start with just a basic definition, which is really quite a mouthful. Information security is the process by which an organization protects information and its critical elements, including the systems, the media, the people, and the facilities that process, store, and transmit that information. So let's dissect this sentence. We're talking about protection. Often you'll hear the word security, but protect is a word I think more of us can relate to. So we're protecting the information and the elements that make that information possible and usable, which include the systems. We often think of the systems as the infrastructure, the servers, the workstations, the connectivity devices, the cabling. The media, that's where we're writing our data. Those are our storage devices, whether they're removable storage or permanent storage devices. The people, and that ranges from our users through the executives who are making the decisions, through our custodians who are doing the implementation and the monitoring. And the facilities that process, store, and transmit that information. Often you'll see that as process, which is in use, store, which is at rest, and transmit, or in transit, the information. So when we put that all together, that's really our focus of what we're going to be doing. When we look at protection, the protection we're doing is from unauthorized access, unauthorized use, unauthorized disclosure, disruption, modification, or destruction, because we depend on that information and those information systems. So our job as information security professionals and practitioners is to ensure that we do protect the information and the critical elements. I want to introduce you to the CIA model. You'll often hear this referred to as the CIA Triad. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability are the fundamental principles that information security is built on. Confidentiality means keeping the information protected and only available to authorized users. Integrity is ensuring that that information is good, it is usable, and that we can depend upon it. And availability means that the information and the systems are available when we need them. All of those three pieces make up the information security model. Now you may wonder, is there one that's more important than the other? And the answer really is, it depends. And it depends on what the mission of the organization is. It depends on what the requirements of the organization. For some organizations, confidentiality is paramount, and that's where they're going to put the majority of their resources. They're going to prioritize confidentiality. For others, the information may be public, but availability is what's very important. Integrity may be most important to another organization. So it's going to balance out by what the organization really requires. So we're going to look at each one of these principles, confidentiality, availability, and integrity, individually. So confidentiality is the principle that only authorized people, and that's important, only those that we said can use the information, processes or systems have access to information, and that information is protected from unauthorized disclosure. Federal Code 44 U.S.C. Section 3542 defines confidentiality as a means for protecting personal privacy and proprietary information. You know, as individuals, we place a high value on this trait, on keeping a confidence. We refer to those who keep our confidences as trustworthy, dependable, and loyal. And in information security, we use that same term, the term trustworthy, which is that a system should be able to be trusted, that information should be able to be trusted, that it's only available to authorized users. If you think of going to your physician, when you go to your physician, you're sharing information with them. It's very personal to you, and you trust that they won't share that information with anyone else other than those who are also involved in your care. That's keeping confidence, and it's our job as security professionals to ensure that that confidentiality remains intact. The next principle is integrity. Integrity is the principle that information or systems should be protected from intentional, unauthorized, or accidental changes. Now, there are two types of integrity. One is data integrity, and data integrity implies that the information is known to be good and that the information can be trusted as being complete, consistent, and accurate. So if we go back to our example of physician, we've shared information. That information ends up perhaps in an electronic medical record, and we want to have the confidence that that information is complete, it's consistent, it's accurate, because that information will be used to provide us with care. The second is system integrity, and that implies that a system will work as it's intended to. So we're back in our physician's office. They've got some medical device hooked up to us. We want to believe and have the confidence that that system is working properly, that whatever the readout is that's going to be used to make next decisions about our medical care is accurate. So data integrity and system integrity. The third principle is availability. Availability is the principle that information and systems are operating and accessible when needed. Quite simply, the goal of availability is to prevent disruption of services and procedures and to ensure timely access to data. There are numerous examples of threats to availability, including denial of service attacks, malware, ransomware, and loss of processing capability. So taken together, confidentiality, integrity, and availability are our core fundamental principles. There are 5 other principles that we're going to be looking at that support confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And those are sometimes referred to as the 5 supporting A's. They are accountability, which is the process of tracing actions to the source. Authentication, which is the positive identification of a person or system. So, for example, when you go to log in, you put in your name, but then you have to prove who you are. That's a positive identification. And we'll be spending an entire lesson on authentication. Authorization is granting users and systems access to resources. So that's when we choose to give rights and permissions to users and systems. And again, we'll be spending an entire lesson on authorization and access control. Accounting is the logging of access and resource utilization, and that goes right back up to accountability. That accounting, we log who has access to the resources and what they did, and accountability is the ability to use that log to trace back actions to their source. Lastly, we have assurance. And assurance is the process that we use to develop confidence that our security measures are working as intended. And we're going to spend a lot of time in this course on assurance, because while it's good that we're going to put controls in place and we're going to manage our program, what's very important is that we know that that program or that those controls are working just the way we intended for them to work, so that we know that we're protecting our systems. So our challenge as security practitioners is how to achieve the objectives of confidentiality and integrity and availability while simultaneously supporting productivity and innovation and the organizational objectives. All too often, as security professionals, we're thought of as the naysayers, the people who are stifling innovation and being a disruptive force. We need to transition to being security enablers and truly supporting the business. The 8 ISC Squared Common Body of Knowledge security domains specifically address these challenges. We're going to be looking at each one of these domains and looking at what are the fundamental concepts in each domain and understanding what are the threats and how we mitigate those threats, and then, most importantly, how do we support the business objectives. So throughout this course, we're going to study applicable security models, countermeasures, and best practices designed to meet these noble and achievable objectives. So let's do a quick lesson review. We started the lesson talking about cybersecurity and information security and the distinction between the two. We then talked about the CIA security triad of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Remember, those are the fundamental principles of information security. Then we looked at the 5 A's of accounting, authentication, authorization, accountability, and assurance. When we take all of this together, we're really looking at the fundamental concepts of information security. So we're next going to do a match the meaning. And as I explained in the introduction, in the match the meaning, we're going to have one of these for every lesson. The first screen that comes up is going to have on the left-hand side key terms that we talked about during this lesson, and on the right-hand side are a number of meanings. Now, some might be an exact meaning or a definition, others might be a description, others might be sort of a corresponding statement. The first screen that you'll see in this match the meaning, they don't match up, you'll see. It's going to be your job to put me on pause, take a few minutes, and make sure that you can match all of the terms in the left-hand column with the terms in the right-hand column. These are terms that you need to know intuitively when you're taking your exam. You may or may not be asked during the exam for a definition, but they will be used in the questions. So it's absolutely imperative that you have a good understanding and that you're very comfortable with all of the terms throughout the course that we put in the match the meaning slides. So go ahead, put me on pause. When you've done your matching, come on back and we'll go through each of them. All right, welcome back. Let's try it. Confidentiality is that data is available to authorized users only. Now you'll notice that's somewhat of a truncated meaning. We know that it should also be available to systems and processes. But in your exam, you may not see full meanings, and you may see a term used just as a partial concept. The second was data integrity. Right? That's that data can be trusted, that we know that the data is accurate and complete, that it's trustworthy. System integrity is that the system will work as intended. We know that the system will perform in the way that we expect. Availability is that the systems will be operating and accessible when needed. Now you may wonder, what's the difference between system integrity and availability? These definitions look very close. Availability just says that the system is operating and accessible to authorized users. It doesn't comment on how it's working. System integrity is a commentary on how the system will work, that it will work as intended. And lastly, we have assurance. And assurance is a level of confidence that the controls work. So this is where we're going to be doing various testing and audit. It's how we know that what we've put in place is actually working to protect our organizations and our environments. So we're going to wrap up every lesson with some CISSP exam tips. The first one is the priority of CIA, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability objectives, is based upon organizational objectives. As security professionals, we can't make those decisions independently for an organization. We need to understand the business objectives, and then we can prioritize and help the organization put the right resources in place. The second is that security should be an enabler, not a disruptive force. We need to ensure that security allows the organization, supports the organization, if you will, to achieve its mission, and that we're not standing in the way as a disruptive force. And third is that assurance is an ongoing process. It's not a set and forget. Environments change, threats change, controls stop working, people start using them in different ways. So on an ongoing basis, we need to be doing our testing and our examination so that we have the assurance, that we have the confidence that our controls are working in the way we intend them to work. Thanks for joining me for Lesson 1.1. I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.